Kore Mwapenduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show where we will be bringing you the latest in news stories from across Africa and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, joined by Aina Raizakweyo.
Happy Friday, everyone. Today is Namibian Heroes Day. Every year on the 26th of August, Namibia observes Heroes Day, a national public holiday meant to celebrate and honor all those who gave their lives in the struggle for Namibian independence. Happy public holiday, Namibia. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the news making headlines. Angola ruling party set to win elections as opposition disputes results. Angola's former Marxist ruling party was set to win a national election as it maintained a solid lead over the main opposition after most votes were counted on Thursday amid accusation of fraud. A win for the People's Movement for Liberation of Angola would extend its nearly 5 decades of continuous rule since independence from Portugal in 1975. The Election Commission said on Thursday that with about 86% of votes counted, the MPLA was ahead with a 52% majority, while their main opposition rivals, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, had 42%. If confirmed, the result would give President João Lourenço a second 5-year term.
In our next story, fighting erupts in Ethiopia's Tigray region, breaking 5-month truce. Now, reports of fresh offensives were followed by Ethiopia's Air Force announcing it had downed a plane carrying weapons for the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Now, the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the rebels have accused each other of undermining efforts to peacefully resolve the brutal 21-month war in Africa's second most populous nation and traded blame over who was responsible for returning to combat. Now, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said he was deeply shocked by the renewed fighting and appealed for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for the resumption of peace talks. Now, the head of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, called for a de-escalation and the resumption of talks to seek a peaceful solution. The TPLF said government forces and their allies had launched a large-scale offensive towards southern Tigray early Wednesday after a months-long lull in fighting, but the government accused the TPLF of striking first and violating the ceasefire. The March truce had paused fighting in a war that first began in November 2020, allowing a resumption of some international aid to the Tigray after a 3-month break. Now, the conflict has already killed untold numbers, with widespread reports of atrocities, including mass killings and sexual violence.
The ICC prosecutor urges to seek justice. The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has urged the UN Security Council to do more to deliver justice for the people in Darfur in a landmark address on Tuesday. The UN says that 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million fled their homes during the ethnic conflict that began in 2003. Former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir will be tried for genocide after he backed mostly Arab militias with a scorched earth policy against the first ethnic minority. The ICC's Karim Khan recently visited the region in person and met with the internally displaced people. He said the people of Darfur are tired of promises.
U.S. sends first ambassador to Sudan in 25 years. The U.S. has sent its first ambassador to Sudan in 25 years, 2 years after Egypt moved it from the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. Now, Ambassador John Gotv arrived in the capital Khartoum on Wednesday and tweeted that he was delighted to be there and looked forward to supporting the Sudanese people's transition to democracy. Now, Sudan was added to the list of countries that sponsor terrorism in 1993 after accusation that it had supported Al-Qaeda, whose founder Osama bin Laden lived in Sudan from 1992 to 1996. Now, in 1997, the U.S. downgraded representation in Sudan from ambassador to the level of chargé d'affaires and imposed economic sanctions. Now, the U.S. announced plans to upgrade their representation in 2019 and the following year appointed an ambassador.
Nigeria suspends 53 radio and TV stations, causing an outcry in the media world. Two organizations filed a complaint on Wednesday in Nigeria targeting both National Broadcasting Commission and President Muhammadu Buhari to prevent the closure of more than 50 radio stations and television channels in the country. The announced suspension of 53 radio and television stations have provoked a storm of reactions in Nigeria. The chairman of the Broadcasting Commission, however, insisted that these measures has nothing political. At a press conference in Abuja last Friday, he explained that the broadcasters concerned had not renewed their licenses on time. He said they owed more than 6 million euros in total. He gave them 24 hours to pay up or stop broadcasting. Faced with heavy criticism, the National Broadcasting Commission finally decided to give more time to the media concerned, which are still broadcasting for the time being. After the break, we bring you more news from Tanzania.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. We continue delving through our top stories. Next up, Tanzania conducts national population and housing census. Now, Tanzania on Tuesday began conducting its national population and housing census, with President Samia Suluhu Hassan being among the first persons to be counted at State House in Chamwino in the capital, Dodoma. Now, a team of census officials led by the Statistician General of the National Bureau of Statistics, Albin Achua, and the Commissioner of the National Population and Housing Census, Anna Makinda, visited the president at 6 a.m. for the counting. I have done with the counting. It is true there were many questions, but they all can be answered in a short time, President Hassan told journalists after she was counted. Now, addressing the nation on Monday night ahead of the National Population and Housing Census, President Hassan urged all Tanzanians to show up during the census to enable the country to have appropriate statistics which can help in planning for development. Now, the last population and housing census was conducted in Tanzania in 2012.
Angola's former president Dos Santos to be buried on Sunday. Angola's former president José Eduardo Dos Santos, who died in Spain last month, will be buried in his native country on Sunday, which could have been his 80th birthday, Luanda has announced. The funeral is set for Sunday, or 28 August in Luanda, according to a foreign ministry note to foreign diplomats in Luanda, seen by the AFP on Wednesday. Dos Santos, who ruled Angola for 38 years until September 2017, died on July 8 at a hospital in Barcelona after suffering cardiac arrests.
In our next story, death toll from Sudan floods rises to 89. Now, Sudan's National Civil Defense Council announced that the number of deaths resulting from torrential rains and flooding over the past month has risen to 89, and that 50,000 homes across the country have either been completely or partially destroyed. Now, heavy rainfall resumed again in El Gezira, but also across northern Sudan, with more than 85 millimeters of rain falling in Dongola on Tuesday. Now, more than 10,000 farmers owning agricultural land containing cotton, beans, and sorghum have been impacted by rainwater, particularly those from El Manjanil and the surrounding villages, they said. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Sudan reported on Sunday that around 25,000 to 30,000 people in El Manjil have been affected by the floods. Now, as of Tuesday, OCHA reported that more than 156,000 people across the whole of Sudan have been affected by the past month of flooding, and more than 12,500 homes have been completely destroyed. Another 21,400 houses are damaged. Now, both the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces, as well as Qatar, have since sent humanitarian aid and deployed forces to El Gezira. Now, on Tuesday, the first 2 Saudi planes loaded with 100 tons of food and shelter equipment landed in Sudan. The U.S. Embassy in Khartoum also affirmed its readiness to help those affected by the floods.
Tanzania installs internet on Mount Kilimanjaro. Tanzania has installed a high-speed internet line on the slope of Mount Kilimanjaro to improve the safety of porters and climbers as they climb Africa's highest peak. State-owned Tanzanian Telecommunications on Tuesday switched on the line installed at 3,720 meters above sea level. The network will cover the peak and its mythical snow at 5,895 meters by the end of the year. Located in northeastern Tanzania near the border with Kenya, the mountain is a popular destination for tourists and mountaineers, with about 35,000 climbing it each year. The mountain, celebrated by Ernest Hemingway in the snow of Kilimanjaro, and the area around it are classified as a national park and listed as UNESCO's World Heritage Site.
Rounding off our top stories, Libreville hosts African Climate Week on 29th August 2022. Now, the event, which will bring together several international institutions, aims to rethink climate finance in Africa with a view to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Now, one of the themes on the menu of the African Climate Week, which takes place from 29th August to 2 September 2022 in Libreville, the capital of Gabon, is how to scale up climate action through climate technology and innovation by small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa. Several regional institutions will participate in the work, such as the African Union, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and the African Development Bank. During these 4 days, the financial institution based in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, will host several debates, including one on the harmonization of the implementation of the United Sustainable Development Goals for the resilience of the African continent to climate hazards. Now, after the break, we'll be back with some more news from Theo Klein, an economist who has some words on the Southern African economy. To stay with us.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact Evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Thank you very much for watching our show this morning. Now, giant economies like South Africa are bullying emerging economies in Southern Africa to gain market access. How fair is that? Simone Storm economist Theo Klein has more on this.
gobbling up our very small income.
Exactly. South Africa imports a great deal of their food also from South Africa, from Europe. And I mean, we also import a great deal of our food from South Africa amongst European countries and so forth. So I think those global food farmers products, sorry, is much higher in South Africa than in Namibia. So obviously there is that financial incentive to then rather export to South Africa, let them do the processing of the meat and so forth, because the farmer at the end of the day gets a higher price, and that benefits them obviously. So, but I mean, all in all, I think, you know, these growth figures are likely to be positive for the agricultural sector. The livestock subsector is about 35% of the agricultural industry in Namibia. So I think it should be positive for the industry's GDP figures at the end of the day, especially for the second quarter, where we've seen total marketing of livestock also increasing by double digits. On average, it was an increase of about 26% in the second quarter this year compared to second quarter last year. So I think for the second quarter, agriculture likely to also be positive. But then going forward, as highlighted by the meat board in Namibia, there are risks given the movement bans on cattle in South Africa because of the recent foot and mouth disease outbreak. So, but I think all in all, you know, still likely to be positive for our local growth figures in the agricultural industry.
Theo, just a general question. It does sometimes crop up, no pun intended. Agriculture as such, I mean, it isn't a huge contributor to GDP if one sort of compare it with mining and wholesale and retail, etc. But the issue goes much deeper than that, because agriculture and a growth in agriculture is extremely important, and because it's such a big employer.
Exactly. I think if I remember correctly, Germany, agriculture is either the second or the third largest employer by industry in Namibia. So once again, as you rightfully said, not contributing much towards GDP. I think the last time I checked, it was roughly between 8 or 10% of GDP. But it is so important for incomes that are being earned by Namibians. Also, I mean, okay, this is not contributing to GDP, but also quite a lot of subsistence farming taking place, especially in the north. You know, but I think it is rightfully, as you say, it is one of the biggest employers. So just in terms of personal income taxes that are paid on those salaries and families that are sustained by those incomes, it is definitely a very important socially for Namibia.
Theo, moving on to the economic side of it, what is the current outlook?
So we are cautiously optimistic on crop production or crop farming, Jomari, partly because, you know, some areas received good rain, some didn't receive much rain, some received late rains, and, you know, and that will negatively impact on their harvests. And then some areas received excessive rain that caused crop damage. So, you know, and we are also aware, I think a few months ago, there were some pesticide or insect outbreaks in the north. You know, so there are quite a number of negatives for crop farming in Namibia. Also, our maize triangle, the area between Gotv, Tsumeb, and Grootfontein, received late rains. And if we look at the first quarter GDP figures, some cereal and grain production and maize production decreased by between 60 and 80% in the first quarter of this year. So I think, you know, that is very large negative figures coming out there. So I think crop production could probably come in negative this year. And also already with the Namibia Agronomic Board, we've seen they have reduced the number of products on their list that, you know, you're not allowed to import. So in June, we had about 13 products that you were not allowed to import because based on their estimates, local supply was sufficient. But then in July already, they reduced that to 10 products.
In our next video, Rebecca Haidulika, chairperson of Gotv Annual Trade Fair, says teams are busy finalizing preparations by erecting and setting up exhibition stands at the showgrounds before it kicks off tomorrow, 26 August. Now, the expo takes place for the first time since 2019. The past 2 years, it was cancelled due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, this year, it is being hosted under the theme Gearing for a Smart Economy. Now, Vice President Nangola Mbumba is expected to be the keynote during the official opening ceremony on Sunday, 28 August. Hidulika said at least 361 local and foreign exhibitors have registered. She said foreign exhibitors will be coming from countries such as South Africa, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Botswana, and Japan. Let's take a look.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
As we mentioned before the break about the Gotv Annual Trade Fair that is set to take place tomorrow, 26th August. Let's take a look at it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us about the Gotv Annual Trade Fair as you celebrate your 20th anniversary of existence. Please tell us, how many exhibitors are we looking to receive for this year's annual trade fair?
Thank you, Tuyemo. Initially, we planned only for 350 because the effects of protocol and the economy the way it is now. So our plan was basically just to have 350 exhibitors. But then I'm looking at today, we have well exceeded over that. So we are saying that we have totally exceeded our targeted number of exhibitors that we're going to have for this annual trade fair.
Thank you so much for agreeing.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
It's the last day of the week, and it's always a good idea to take a look at the weather.
Which communities are most at risk of monkeypox in the current outbreak and why? WHO and DSTV explain how we can support communities at risk in this Science in 5's video.
Monkeypox. Which are the communities that are more at risk and why? And what can we do to address the stigma and support these communities more? Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We are talking to Andy Seal today. Welcome, Andy. Let's start, Andy, with this new outbreak. It seems that certain communities are more affected than others. Which are these communities?
So, we're seeing nearly 70 countries affected by this outbreak. In previously affected countries, which are largely in West Africa, we're seeing communities of diverse backgrounds and ages. And in newly affected countries, we're seeing cases that are largely focused on men. And when we look at those cases, we're noticing that actually it's men who have sex with men, so men who identify as gay, bisexual, or who have sex with other men, who have perhaps reported through sexual health clinics or as part of efforts to reach cases through contact tracing. There have been some cases reported in women and children, but these have been very limited. And so we have to respond to the data. We have to really look at targeting our resources where we know the infections are happening. And at the moment, it's really happening within this particular group. But remember, anyone can get infected if they're in contact with the virus. And so for the moment, while we're concentrating our efforts on gay, bisexual and other men who have sex with men, we are also keeping a strong eye on the data to see whether the outbreak will evolve into other communities.
Andy, speak to us about why this particular community seems to be affected.
There are multiple modes of transmission for monkeypox, including skin-to-skin contact, kissing, or touching infected materials like bed linen. What we know and what the evidence tells us is that sexual networks within communities of gay, bisexual and other men who have sex with men have played a role in transmitting the virus in the context of this outbreak. So some gay and bisexual men are connected to these dynamic sexual networks that connect cities and countries. And in the early days of the outbreak, international travel seemed to play a significant role in further amplification of this outbreak. This community is active in managing its health. We know that many gay men actively seek sexual health services. For example, many of them will take HIV medications as pre-exposure prophylaxis to prevent HIV infection. And of course, some men are also HIV positive. So these men are in constant contact with health services. And through that regular contact and access to services gives them the opportunity to check up on any symptoms or any health issues they might be concerned about. So this has probably also played a role in the identification of cases within this community.
Andy, speak to us about stigma and the damage that it can do, and also about how we can all support these communities.
Well, stigma essentially stops people from accessing services. It helps no one. So we need to really be robust in addressing and identifying stigma and discrimination when we understand that it's happening. And the best way to do that is working closely with these communities. Communities of gay, bisexual men and other men who have sex with men are providing tremendous leadership in the context of this outbreak. We're seeing great advocacy around access to testing, access to vaccines, and in the promotion of prevention messages to stop the further spread of monkeypox. This is the kind of work that really helps contain outbreaks like this one. And we need to further work with these communities, support them with their own fundraising so that this work is properly resourced, and continue to make sure they're at the table when decisions are taken, not only about fighting stigma, but around access issues as well, including vaccine access and testing. Having monkeypox can be distressing, and people need support. We mustn't blame or stigmatize anybody for either being exposed to monkeypox, perhaps they've been identified through contact tracing, or indeed for having the virus itself. We need to provide support to people who are in this situation. Hopefully for most it'll be a short-lived, mild infection, but we know for some people it can be very painful and they may require hospital care. There are practical things that we can do, not only to fight the stigma, but also to offer practical support, including with shopping, if they're isolating, for example, and offering people a friendly shoulder if they need to talk about their experiences. There's a lot of misinformation about monkeypox, much of it fueled by homophobia and racism. We have to challenge this. We must work more closely with the communities affected, really inspired by their leadership, their advocacy around access to testing, to vaccines, and to services in general. and really strengthen those links between public health agencies and communities of gay, bisexual and other men who have sex with men. Fighting stigma and getting this response right come hand in hand, and it's through partnership with communities that's the way to go.
Thank you, Andy. You can access more information about monkeypox on our website, who.int. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Now, the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, more commonly referred to as COP26, was the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference held at the SEE Centre in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. Let's take a look at this video on the COP26 summit.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species? Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and oneup2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
What would the world look like if every country doesn't have access to COVID-19 vaccines in time? Let's take a look at this video on just that.
In 2020, scientists developed life-saving COVID-19 vaccines in record-breaking time. It was miraculous. It saved the lives of my parents and grandparents. In just a few months, nearly everybody in my country got the vaccine.
I lost my mother right at the start of the pandemic. So many doctors and nurses got sick. School closed down. But then came the vaccine.
You said life would return to normal. You restored our hope.
And you promised you wouldn't stop there. You said you'd help other countries. You promised to share vaccines with the whole world.
To make sure it ended everywhere, for everyone.
But you took too long.
You brought up supplies and held them back.
Just in case.
You let people in other countries suffer. Doctors and nurses kept getting sick.
Teachers died. You let the virus carry on, going round and round and round. It changed into even more dangerous variants.
Then it all came back. Again, and again, and again. Schools closed. Again.
Life kept getting turned upside down. For all of us. Things could have worked out so differently.
You knew that no one is safe.
Until everyone's safe.
Let's look at our economic news. South Africa's inflation hits 13 years of high of 7.8%. South Africa's inflation hit a new record of high of 7.8% year-on-year in July, its highest level in 13 years, driven mainly by rising food, transport and electricity prices. Official figures showed on Wednesday. Year-on-year consumers' price inflation reached a new 13-year high, rising to 7.8% in July from 7.4% in June, the National Statistic Agency Stats SA said in a statement. Commodities such as food, beverages, electricity, medicine are most affected. Annual inflation for non-durable goods is in double digits at 14.4%. Stats SA points out the price of bread has risen by 13.7%, oil rose by 36.2%. South Africans will with nearly 34% of the workforce unemployed, are also facing a 56.2% in fuel prices. On Wednesday, the country's two largest unions called for a demonstration against their high cost of living.
In our next story, Nigerian government and U.S. signed agreement for return of $23.4 million abacha loot. Now, the federal government yesterday entered into a fresh agreement with the government of the United States of America for the repatriation of a total sum of $23,439,724 allegedly looted by the late former military head of state, General Sani Abacha. Now, the decision to return the looted fund, which he tagged as Abacha 5, was a product of a series of negotiations and meetings between Nigeria, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the UK National Crime Agency, NCA. Now, the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Ms. Leonard, disclosed that her country has so far repatriated stolen funds totaling over $334.7 million to Nigeria. She said the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, seized the funds in response to General Abacha and his associates' violation of U.S. laws when they laundered assets through the U.S. and into accounts in the United Kingdom. Now, the U.S. government is keenly aware of the devastating impact corruption has on societies. Corruption erodes trust and the ability of government to deliver to their citizens.
Kenya shilling weakens to a record low against US dollar. The Kenyan shilling have been falling for the 14th consecutive month in July, with the longest stretch of 30 days losses on a record. We expect the local currency to continue to remain under pressure due to the increasing dollar demand as global oil prices remains elevated on the back of a higher import bill and reduced dollars inflation from the key export earning sector, according to Nairobi-based Bucharest. Kenya's biggest source of foreign currency is remittances by citizens living outside its borders. Inflows in the first half rose to 17% to $2.4 billion from the year earlier, according to the central bank data.
Now, in some interesting news, survey recommends SA government tax the rich and help the poor. Now, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development presented the latest economic survey of South Africa, offering a rather bleak outlook on the economic state and forecasted growth for the country. Now, according to the study, the COVID-19 crisis has weakened an already fragile economy. South Africa's growth underperformed during the past decade, in that GDP per capita was already lower in 2019 than in 2008. Now, the study revealed that unemployment remains high at around 35% and youth unemployment even exceeds 50%. Now, the OECD said the South African labor market is particularly weak, contribute to wide income inequality, leading to losses of human capital and potential growth. Now, unemployment is strikingly high and persistent when compared to other emerging market economies, while the employment to population ratio is among the lowest. Now, the OECD advised that reducing tax deductions and allowances and taxing fringe benefits more adequately would restore the progressivity of the PIT system and contribute to inequality reduction. In addition, the OECD suggested that the tax system could contribute further to reducing income and wealth inequalities. Now, I understand that we are really in some interesting times, right? As our economic news tells us, we are experiencing inflation and it's affecting everybody. And yes, as we can see now. So let's take a look at our economic indicators.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navrae, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact my.na@synergy.com.na. My.na Cars, more than just a ride.
On Africa Good Morning, every day we bring you a well-packaged sports package by Ari Khoukhad. Let's have a look.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cycling news. It is still the Vuelta de España that is continuing. That is one of Spain's most premier cycling events, cycling tours, and it was stage 5, a very difficult stage, lots of mountains as well to get over, and in the end it was Marc Soda of Spain that won in a time of 4 hours 15 minutes and 23 seconds. Not a good day for Primož Roglič. He was the leader, yellow jersey leader, after stage 4, but he fell back quite a bit. He's now more than a minute behind the new leader, and that is Rudy Moland that took over from him the general classifications. Good news for South Africa, or Southern African interest, is that it is Daryl Impey of South Africa that finished in second place in stage 5. He was 4 seconds behind the winner of the stage, Marc Soler. Daryl Impey is racing for the Israel Pentatech team. In third position was Fred Wright. He's from Great Britain. That was in stage 5. The overall classification then, Rudy Moland is leading 16 hours 7 minutes and 22 seconds is his combined time for 5 stages, followed by Fred Wright just 2 seconds behind him, and then Nicholas Arndt, he's 1 minute and 9 seconds behind the leader. Going on to some soccer news on international sport, and that is Newcastle United. News from Newcastle United that they had a good start to the season, and they're also trying to find a new striker, and they're prepared to pay a club record £60 million for the striker of Sweden. His name is Alexander Isak, and he's playing for Sociedad at the moment. He's just 22 years old, and the previous record for the highest price paid for a new signing was 40 million euros, so 40 euro pounds. That was way back in 2019. Other transfer news is that Chelsea is apparently trying to sign the Manchester United defender, that is Harry Maguire. He plays for England. He's 29 years old, but he's out of favour a little bit with new coach Erik ten Hag and didn't start in the last game against Liverpool. That is still in negotiations, so no amount was set to buy Harry Maguire yet. Now, to continue on international sports news, some golf news. It is the PGA, the professional PGA in the USA, that announced some new initiatives. That is to counter the LIV Invitational Golf Series backed or managed by Greg Norman, backed by Saudi Arabia. So some of the changes that was announced, that there's going to be increase in 12 tournaments that's being played on the PGA next year. That is on average purse. That average purse for those 12 tournaments will be $20 million. The average purse at the moment for the LIV Golf Initiative is $25 million. There's also a new high-tech league that was launched. That was going to be the coordinators of that will be Tiger Woods and also Rory McIlroy. The initiative is that there will be 15 Mondays that they will play in a stadium. It was in a stadium golf that they will play. It is 6 teams of 3 team members each that will play. So it is on Monday nights, and there's planned to be 15 of them, and that will only start in 2024. Apparently that is to appeal the younger fans. That is the message from the PGA. News from the PGA is that the FedEx finals will continue this coming weekend, or the finals will be played starting on Thursday with the first round and the final round on Sunday. It's being played at Salt East Lake Golf Course in Atlanta. Top 30 on the FedEx list is playing in that tournament. The next tournament in the LIV Golf Initiative will be on the 1st of September, and that will be played in Boston. Let's finish off today's international sports news with Formula One racing, and it was announced that Daniel Ricciardo, he's going to leave McLaren at the end of the season. The Australian is going to be replaced by another Australian. That is the rumours. He is from Formula 2 and his name is Oscar Piastri, and it is the Belgian Grand Prix that's going to be next. It's going to be this coming weekend. Daniel Ricciardo will still be driving for McLaren the next 12 races in the Formula One. Also news from Ferrari is that Charles Leclerc said that he had good discussions with Matteo Bonotti. He is the team principal of Ferrari, and that is related to strategies and approach for the next 12 races. So that's international sports news for today. Hope you have a good sports day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
This is Africa Good Morning, and if you've just joined us, worry not. Here are your highlights. Angola ruling party set to win election as opposition disputes results. Fighting erupts in Ethiopia's Tigray region, breaking 5-month truce. ICC prosecutor urges UN to seek justice. US sends first ambassador to Sudan in 25 years. Nigeria suspends 53 radio TV stations, causing an outcry in the media world. South Africa's inflation hits a 13-year high of 7.8%.
Those have been our stories. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday edition of Africa Good Morning. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can post them on our Facebook and Twitter pages. That is at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website which is called One Up To. Please visit us for more content that you love to see. Africa Good Morning screens on DSTV channel 285 as well as Gotv channel 94 every weekday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Now from all of us here in studio, is all our love, all our light. Happy holiday, Namibia.